Hello, and welcome to 805 Focus, where you get the latest updates on our wonderful local nonprofits. My name is Greg Gorga, your host for today, and when I'm not sitting in this chair, I am the Executive Director of the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum. And with me today is Michael Baker. He is the CEO of United Boys and Girls Clubs of Santa Barbara County. Michael, welcome.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me, and thanks for your service to Maritime.
Oh, thank you.
You guys have been tremendous partners for not only Boys and Girls Clubs, but so many youth organizations, so thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you. I love it when your kids come by. And
they love it too.
So tell us a little bit about the history of the Boys and Girls Clubs.
Sure. So the first club started in Hartford, Connecticut. The true irony, because they were called Boys Clubs then, the true irony of Boys Clubs, which started in 1860 in Hartford, Connecticut, were started by women. These two sisters and their aunt, the Goodwin sisters, invited these boys into their home for tea and cookies, because what was a big issue then was child labor was a huge issue. And they saw these kids just with no guidance, and they invited them into their home for tea and cookies, and next day 5 more kids came and just started growing, and they actually recruited a gentleman named John Collins, who was a retired educator in the community, and they went to a local church and asked him if he'd be willing to work with these youth who needed needed a place, someone to give them guidance. And he developed principles back then that we still use to this day. So that's really the first club, Hartford, Connecticut, 1860.
Wonderful. And when did it start here in Santa Barbara County?
1938, the Downtown Club, as we call it, formerly Boys and Girls Club of Santa Barbara. That's the original club. Technically not the original. The original club was on Haley Street, which was a group of firefighters saw these kids up on a hill, the mesa, and I think it was figs, that they were throwing figs, and the firefighters went up to them and said, "What are you doing?" We don't have anything to do. We're kind of bored, and so they invited them into the firehouse and converted it into what was then a boys' club, and they had 200 kids by the end of the first year. And then once that happened, they started immediately trying to find a location to actually build a Boys and Girls Club. And that's the first club, which is on Cannon Perdido, and that opened in 1947. So they started plans to build one and raise the money, and then the war broke out, and it was on pause until the war was over. And that club opened in 1947. And so we've got a lot of people that we've served in Santa Barbara.
What a wonderful story.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example, because I think a lot of people think, and I do, you realize that keeping kids active keeps them out of trouble, right? And the more we can keep them active, the less trouble they're going to get in. But you've taken that beyond that and do some wonderful programming with these kids.
Well, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I'm blessed in that we have wonderful staff at all of our clubs, and we really, the adage I always say, we're from Carpinteria to Lompoc and everywhere in between, because we have a club in Lompoc, Buellton, Solvang, Camp Whittier, which is our almost 100-acre camp, and then Goleta, and 2 clubs in Santa Barbara, and our Carpinteria club. And the people that run those clubs, our club directors, they're really our secret sauce. They've got to be the jack of all trades, and especially now, Greg, and I know you can appreciate this being in the nonprofit world, going through COVID and coming out of COVID, the biggest challenge we have right now is staffing and getting people to work with the youth that we work with, and we're having the hardest time getting folks, but we're making good progress. But those club directors are so critical, because they set the tone, and they're responsible for everything that happens in that building. And the right club director makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, and hopefully if anybody in our audience is looking for a job, I know when I moved from for-profit to nonprofit, my life was so much better. I still work hard, but I just feel better about myself every day doing that wonderful work, as I know your staff do too.
I'm going to pull an Uncle Sam and look at whatever the camera is. I want you. We need you. Come work for the Boys and Girls Clubs.
And do you have different programming in different locations? Are the needs different in the different clubs?
Yeah, we have core programming that we do in all of our clubs: the homework assistance, arts and crafts, of course, game room activity, technology, physical fitness, sports recreational programs. We do all those at all of the clubs. And that's the traditional Boys and Girls Club. And we're trying to get back to doing as much of that as possible. We're limited because of the amount of staffing that we have and trying to hire more people. But each of our clubs does have some uniqueness to it. So take our two Santa Barbara clubs as an example. We have a wonderful partnership with a group called Notes for Notes. And in both of those locations, we have a full-on music studio where our members are given free music lessons. We give them the space. They work with our youth and teach them, how to play a musical instrument from basically knowing nothing to really learning and mixing their own music, recording their own music. That happens at our West Side and our downtown club. We don't have that at other locations, but if you were to go to our Goleta Club, one of the beautiful things about our Goleta Club is we have this wonderful and it's magnificent field right next to the club. It's a big, beautiful field in partnership with the city of Goleta. They renovated, fixed it up. It's beautiful, and we use it for a lot of our sporting activities. And having clubs from all of our clubs come there on Saturdays when we were operating on Saturdays, and having athletic programs, we run a lot of them there. Beautiful location there as well. And our other clubs, Carpinteria. I mean, it's so close to the beach, and I mean it's carp. Lompoc. The beautiful thing about Lompoc that is really unique is the City of Arts and Flowers. There's murals everywhere, and one of the things I would really love to do, and I've talked with the Lompoc Unified School District about this, is if you've ever been to our Lompoc Club, you drive by it on Ocean Avenue. It's a huge building, facing ocean, and it's perfect for a mural. Perfect. It's just perfect for a mural. So I would love to see the Lompoc Unified School District work on, maybe with their seniors as a project to paint something. That would be beautiful. Great opportunity there. Beautiful canvas. And then the other thing that's unique with our Buellton and Solvang sites, they're on school campuses. So that's probably, not probably, that's the future of Boys and Girls. It makes all the sense in the world. As everybody can appreciate, the cost of building here is very expensive. But things that already exist are schools. And when they close, we open. So, and especially in Buellton, that happens to be where I live. My wife and I, we live in Buellton, and there are so many people that live in that community that don't work in Buellton. They work in Santa Barbara, Goleta, or maybe even in Santa Maria. So, if they work a traditional 9-to-5 job, when they go to work, they drop their child off at school at 7:30, 8 in the morning, and then typically, if there wasn't a Boys and Girls program at the Boys and Girls Club at the school, when school was over, Johnny's going to walk home because and good chance mom or dad are not even there, so they're going home to nobody. So us being on the school campus is a great partnership. Provides a safe place for the kids to go after school. They're in one location. Parents don't have to worry about where's my kid going after school. $10 a day is what we charge for that, for a child to go there and make sure they have a snack and their homework's done when the parents come to pick them up. And they could be there up till 6 o'clock. So it's a perfect program in Santa Barbara, in Buellton and Solvang. It's worked out really, really well. So I think the future for us, if you're saying what do you see as the vision, working more with the schools as much as possible to get even more locations, to serve even more kids, because the need is so great. It's a huge day. The after-school programming is a huge need. You could put a Boys and Girls Club on the same block as a YMCA, and the same block as a Boy Scout program, as Girls Inc., and they'd all be packed with kids, and there still would be a waiting list because there's just that much need.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea because it's an issue. And you concentrate on after-school programming and then Saturdays as well?
So we would like to get Saturdays going again. We haven't been able to open on Saturdays for a while because of staffing. We just don't have enough staff to make that work yet again. But I'm a big believer in opening on Saturdays. Yeah. We are open from when school closes, and on early dismissal days, our clubs are open earlier for the full for that day. And then when there are days when schools are out, we're open for the full day.
Like the summer.
Summertime, absolutely. So summer, parents drop their kids off at 8 o'clock in the morning, pick them up at 6. And the clubs are open, and they need a place for their kids to go. There's other programs as well. I mean, the Fun in the Sun's a great program, YMCA and Girls Inc. I mean, there's so many groups that are doing things, but there's just not enough. There's just not enough. Yeah. And what breaks my heart right now is we have wait lists at several of our clubs because I just don't have enough staff.
Yeah.
Trying to get more staffing.
And it's always staffing issues, not affordability for the families, because you help the families with that as well, right?
We don't turn anybody away.
Yeah.
I really need to give credit to our board and certainly our donors. We do not, under any circumstances, turn anybody away because they can't afford to go to the Boys and Girls Club. It's $40 a year for a membership. And if we're balancing our books on membership dues, we're in the wrong business. We're going about it the wrong way. But after school programming, we want to make sure that any child that needs the Boys and Girls Club can get in. And I'm blessed that I have a board that supports that and lives that philosophy and makes that a priority in our organization. Not everybody has that. Like I said, I'm blessed that I have that, and we have donors that step up. What I will tell everybody, and I brag about our donors, I do, because I know when there's tough times, and there are donors that normally support 3 charities on an annual basis, and if we're one of those charities, when times get really tough and they maybe have to whittle it down to 2, I know we're still going to be on their list. Mm-hmm. And the reason that's going to happen is because not only the work that we do, but because when things are really tough, we don't want to turn anybody away, but also we step up. And I will give the best example I can give most recently would be COVID. Mm-hmm. When COVID kicked in, Greg, in March of 2020, we went from 115 employees to 12 overnight. I mean, that was overnight. And we turned our clubs into food distribution centers. We didn't have to do that. We worked with the food bank. Great, they deserve all the credit because they gave us all the food. Mm-hmm. But we went from mid-March with 12 employees till the end of June. We handed out over 110,000 food baskets at all of our club locations, which helped roughly over 500,000 people. And again, that was not something we had to do. We could have just shut down and said, hey, we can't serve, we'll do remote learning distance, which we did as well. Mm-hmm. But we stepped up, and not only that, we figured out a way to reopen. And we reopened in July of 2020, and thank goodness that we did that because the schools weren't open.
Yeah.
So every single one of our clubs, every one of them, was turned into a remote learning center for kids to go to. So we had children coming to the Boys and Girls Club, and they were going on their Zoom sessions at the Boys and Girls Club because they didn't have the internet at home, mm-hmm. And they had nowhere else. Parents had nowhere else for them to go, yeah. And the story I always tell, and I'm going to get through the story. It brings a tear to my eye every time I tell it. But when we were doing that program, about 3 months into it, at our downtown club, we had all the protocols in place. People couldn't even get out of their cars until we did the temperature check, mm-hmm. and answering the questions, and then they had to wash their hands, and they had to wear a mask at all times. They had to be 6 feet apart. It was what we did. That's what we had to do in order to serve the kids. I will never forget this. That we had this one car that pulled up, and I happened to be behind the club at the time, and the staff member walked up to the car, and the parent wouldn't roll down the window. And no, you need to roll, because they need to answer the questions. We do temperature checks not only the mom, the parent, but also the child. And she, in Spanish, told him, no, he has COVID. And the parent said in Spanish to our staff member, I just need to be able to park here so he can get the Wi-Fi so he can attend his classes.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
how much you mean to the families.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you see that, I mean, that's yeah. Like, I mean, how can you not love it?
Absolutely. And I don't think people realize that, these kids, they get if they're not in the school, they're not getting a lunch for a lot of these families. So the fact that you were able to provide that during those first months of COVID, and then getting them, because their education went downhill with Zoom is so difficult. I know, mm-hmm. And my staff had trouble for 20 minutes just showing kids whales and yeah. dolphins, and they weren't paying attention to that. I can't imagine what the teachers had to go through. So getting them to go through the summer program and helping them is just amazing. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. And one of the things that I wear as a badge of honor is, and I say this all the time, I grew up incredibly poor. I'm not ashamed of that, and everything I've been through in my life has, helped me. And I look at the work I do now differently because of the circumstances that I was raised in. And I was one of those kids that had the card that got me free breakfast and lunch at schools because we didn't have food. And it's always been a huge priority to me in all of our facilities and clubs. And so thankful that we provide dinner every night at our clubs. And the first thing that went through my mind, quite honestly, Greg, when we had to shut down was, okay, like you said, what are these kids going to eat? We need to figure this out because, and we're in the month of October, and this is one of the months has 31 days. I remember being a kid and hating the months that had 31 days because it was just another day that you had to wait until you got your next welfare check that allowed, was food stamps. And it was a perfect storm when you get to the end of the month and you're out of money, you have no food at home, and there's no school on Saturday or Sundays, and you're just like, this stinks, and you don't eat. And I know, and I can tell you this from my experience, I know for a fact that we have children that come to our clubs that if I weighed them on a Friday at the end of the school day, at the end of the club, and then weighed them again Monday morning, they would weigh significantly less because they're not eating over the weekend.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize that happens here in Santa Barbara County, but it is a huge issue. And we also knew a gentleman that thrived because of the Boys Club in New York, Ladd Handelman.
Oh, Laddie.
Who then went on to become a leader in commercial diving and is honored in my museum because he led that industry. And he was a troubled youth in a gang until he showed up at a boys club.
Kips Bay Boys and Girls Club, Bronx, New York, famous for not only producing Ladd Handelman, but also Jennifer Lopez. I went to that club as a kid. And they have a phenomenal performing arts program. But when I met Laddie for the first time, when I first started working here in 2015, and he wheeled his way over to me and, "You're a new director." And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You better get this thing going in the right direction." I said, "We're going to be fine. We'll move in the right direction." And he was always supportive of the Boys and Girls Club. He would call me. He would ask how things were going. What do you need? He would write a check. He was always there for the Boys and Girls Club, and was there for the Boys and Girls Club after he passed away too. And he made a very significant gift. And never forgot where he came from.
Yeah, that's right.
And the lessons. And again, that's the beauty of our organization, is that I reap the benefits of the work that was done to Ladd Handelman when he was a youth in the Bronx, New York, because of the Boys and Girls Club, then the Boys Club in the Bronx, New York. He comes here and supports our local club. Yeah. That's what's special about Boys and Girls Clubs. I love when we have an event. And one of the first things I do when I get up and we have an event is I'll say to the group, I said, 300, 400 people at an event for a fundraiser for us, I'll say, "I want you to stand up if you're an alum of Boys and Girls Clubs. I don't care where you went to a Boys and Girls. Inevitably, there'll be half a dozen, 2 dozen people standing up in the room. And I will say to the group every single time, so next time you go to an event, you'll see me do this. And I'll say, "You want proof that Boys and Girls Clubs work? Look at the people standing in this room." And these are pillars of society.
Yeah.
I mean, the Tom Parkers of the world, Angel Martinez. I mean, these are people that grew up in the clubs, and these clubs made a huge difference in their lives. Yeah. And they come back to support it. Yeah. There's no better selling point than that. There just isn't.
So we just have a minute left. So I'm sure you have volunteers. You can utilize volunteers.
Absolutely.
And you need financial support.
Always.
So how can people volunteer or support you financially?
Sure.
Or both?
Sure. So first of all, volunteering, we do the background check on everybody. So you can go to our website at www.unitedbg.org. It's UNITED, B as in boy, G as in girl.org, and click on volunteer opportunities. But there's always ways to get support our events, our big events, that we have coming up. You can always check the calendar of events, and of course, year end. A lot of folks have been extremely fortunate in Santa Barbara, and year end, I'm always love going to the mailbox, P.O. box, and seeing those colored envelopes that are coming. Oh, they're exciting. What's in this? And inevitably, it's always new donors and folks that's stepping up. So we appreciate your support.
Yeah, November, December are our favorite months.
Love December. Love it.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Well, Michael, thank you for being here, and also thank you for all the great work that you and your staff do and with our youth in here in Santa Barbara County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you again for what you do.
Appreciate it. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on 805 Focus.